Now to wine, and when it comes to fine wine, an English vineyard may not immediately spring to mind, but that may change after what's been called a once-in-a-century crop of grapes having been harvested in Surrey. And Brady reports.
In the heart of Surrey's commuter belt, not 30 miles from central London, lies England's largest vineyard. And they're celebrating because 2014's vintage looks like being the best ever.
Well, it's a rather cold, bleak winter's day here, but not that long ago, something very, very special happened here. These vines this year produced what's being described as a once-in-a-century crop of grapes.
All the wine has been fermented in.
Chris White's father planted vines in 1986 when a friend noticed the limestone soil is similar to regions of northern France, where they produce excellent white wine. That decision is now paying dividends. Marks and Spencer have just put in an order for 60,000 bottles. So what made this year's harvest so good?
We had a very good start to the year. We didn't really have any frost to damage the crop this year. And then it's been a really long, warm ripening period. So the fruit set well at the early part of the year as well. So the potential was all there, the volume has been big, but normally with a big volume, it can reduce the quality. As the goodness is spread out quite thinly amongst a lot of grapes, but this year the conditions were so good, we've got both quality and quantity.
Great strides are now being made in a sector where British winemakers were previously seen as amateurish outsiders.
Well, what it's done is it's creating many more jobs, so we now have 100 billion food and drink industry employing 1 in 8 people, and sparkling wines are a growing part of that, and we're exporting to more and more countries. We've got 100 million in exports in an industry we traditionally weren't part of.
The Duke and Duchess of Cambridge served an English sparkling white wine at their wedding in 2011. Now winemakers across the world are sitting up and taking notice.
I think many years ago, we win an international award and they'll say, oh, well, you know, once in a blue moon you can win something, but year on year now we're winning gold awards. Not really competing, we're beating the French and these traditional winemaking methods, and they've been looking at some land for themselves in the southeast of England, looking at the vineyards, looking at what we're doing here, and yeah, and it's exciting times for English vineyards, and you know, around the world, people are holding English wine up as a very high quality product.
The number of English winemakers now stands at 135, the highest for 2 decades. If 2014's vintage is anything to go by, it's likely to rise even further. Enda Brady, Sky News in Dorking.
Let's talk to Gilbert Winfield, a member of the Association of Wine Educators. He joins me from our central London studio. Good to talk to you, Gilbert. Now, we're not just being patriotic here, are we? This stuff really does stand up to the best in the world.
Yes, I think so. I think we should remember that it's not that recent. We've been making wine in England for quite a long time. I mean, there's evidence that the Romans had vineyards planted in southern England.
Yeah, so, okay, well, the Romans, I mean, and that, well, I suppose that deals with one of the questions I was going to ask you. Do you think climate change, the climate getting a bit warmer, has anything to do with it? As I say, you just answered it.
Yes, people talk about climate change, and yes, certainly we have had not just 2014, but other very good summers in England recently. But we should also remember that the climate's fluctuated from time to time. So periodically, during the Roman times, it seems evident that the climate was quite warm. It got cooler again in the 16th century, around Henry VIII's time. And then in the 20th century, in the latter half of the 20th century, it's warmed up again. So yes, that certainly helps.
Okay, and I guess certain grapes do better than others. What are the best English wine grapes to look for?
Well, we're still, even if climate change is helping, we're still a northern wine producing region, so white wines are better, although we do make a small amount of red. White grapes work better. And we've had a lot of success, as has been mentioned, with sparkling wines because we have a similar climate and geology to the Champagne region.
Oh, how does that work then? Similar geology? Well, that's chalk then, is it?
Yeah, there's a ridge of chalk that is quoted as being partly responsible for the quality of Champagne, which runs through north-west France, up through the cliffs in Calais, appears again in cliffs in Dover and runs through Sussex, Kent, Hampshire, and is responsible, part of the reason why English sparkling wine is of very good quality.
Quite a lot going for it, but one thing it hasn't got going for it, I suppose, if people want to experiment with it, is the price. I had a look the other day, and English sparkling wine costs about the same as a very decent bottle of champagne.
And so it should. To make good sparkling wine costs a lot of money, it takes a long time, it needs a lot of expensive kit to do it with, and it needs a period of aging to round out the flavours.
Yeah, problem is though, isn't it, that the good Proseccos and Cavas from Italy and Spain undercut it?
Yes, it's a different category. It's a different pleasure, Prosecco. There's nothing wrong with... There's a lot going for Prosecco. It's a lot easier to make. It's well, cheaper production method. It's a more cost-effective production method.
Okay, well, Gilbert, great to talk to you. Thank you very much. It's just a pity you're not in the studio here with me. We could have tasted a glass or two, maybe another time.
Absolutely.
Okay,
maybe this evening.
Okay, right, that's a date. Gilbert Winfield there. Now, two more people